Okay. Um, I just balked that whole intro because I wasn't recording and I need the recording to be able to upload to YouTube. So I'm going to start over. What am I doing this week? Oh, yes. Um, so last week, go to my YouTube. Last week I streamed about sort of AI news and updates. And one of the updates that I checked out towards the end of the stream was WP Bench. And so today I want to take a little bit of a deeper dive into WP Bench, understand how it works, what it does, how I can use it, how I can contribute to it. There's possibly, I want to see if I can add a data set because the data sets are apparently limited a little bit at the moment or something. So we'll talk about data sets. I also want to figure out, so there were a couple of things that I wanted to figure out last week. One of them was, can I run local models? So I have figured that out already, but I want to sort of dive into that and run a couple of local models that I've installed. And then I want to see, so I have, what I've done is, move this over here. And the reason I have my workstation running is because I can SSH into my workstation, which is an Ubuntu workstation. And I have the same models installed on that workstation as I do on my Mac. And so I just want to see out of interest sake if it is theoretically faster, because I do know that my workstation, based on some benchmarks, my workstation is a little bit faster than my Mac. I actually benchmarked the machines. Let me see if I can find that benchmark. Trying to find that post. Yeah, there we go. So I built this sort of May last year, June last year. It runs an Intel Core i7 14700K with a GeForce RTX 4070 Ti. So theoretically, and when I did the benchmarking versus my M1 MacBook Pro, it was quite a bit faster. I mean, Blender was at least twice as fast. Geekbench was quite a bit faster. The GPU scores for Blender were insanely increased. 46 versus 7,500 something, and 42,000 versus 42,000 versus 252,000. So I'm hoping that when I run the benchmarks, they're able to use the GPU. I don't know if that's going to make a difference. But it's definitely faster than the MacBook. So I just want to compare. I kind of want to run them side by side and just see which one wraps up quicker. I also want to time them somehow because I don't think there's a timer on the bench. So I'm just curious to see that. So that'll be a little bit of fun. We'll do that maybe a little bit later. Okay, so let's just go through the process. I did cover this last week, but essentially the process is clone the repository, which I have already done. I have it over here. I'm going to just close down some of these files. I'm also just going to check whether I need to run a git pull. Anything's changed. Oh, I'm on the wrong machine. It's probably working in the command line as you get confused as to where you are. Okay, so git pull. Okay, so that's up to date. That's the latest code. So essentially, the process is clone the repository. You need to use Python. This works pretty well on both my MacBook and my Ubuntu machine because Python is installed as like Python 3 or whatever it is. I don't know why that is, but that's how it's set up. So it works. I've tested this in both machines and it works just as well. So essentially, inside of the there you go. Inside of the directory, you run this to kind of set up the Python environment. It's like a virtual environment that you need for Python. So you run that to set up the environment, and then you use pip to install. I guess this installs like dependencies or something. See what's in the Python directory. Oh, you install WP Bench because that's in the Python directory. Oh, okay, so it looks like that probably installs it and then sets it up as a binary that you can run. Which, yeah, that is what it does. Okay, cool. Let's just see here. Build dependencies, getting requirements, installing backend dependencies. So it installs any packages you need. I did this last week, so that's why this is much quicker. And then installs the WP Bench. So you found, I did this last week, that's why it's found system one. So if I now go which WP Bench, yeah, so it finds it there. Oh, so it's in the virtual environment bin WP Bench. Okay, so it basically installs it in here. And then all the other things that I need are there as well, and that's kind of cool. I haven't played with Python a lot, so I'm learning how this works. And then you need to configure API keys. That's if you want to run like public models, like OpenAI models, Anthropic models, Google models. I've already done that. There's my env file. I'm not going to open it because then I'll leak my API keys, but I have already created those. I've just done OpenAI and Anthropic today. Actually, is that right? Is that true? Let me check that off screen. Let's go to new window. Check that off screen. Basically, going into the WP Bench directory and then checking out what's inside the env file. Yes, so it's OpenAI and Anthropic. I haven't configured any others, so I'm just going to use those models today. And then once you've done that, then you need to start the WordPress runtime. So this is basically using Docker and WP-env to set up a virtual WordPress environment. If you've never heard of WP-env, it's basically a local development environment for WordPress that was developed by the Gutenberg sort of project team. So you can basically run it from anywhere, like from a plugin from a theme. It'll open up Docker, run Docker, and then set up the things. So I don't use Docker Desktop. I use something called OrbStack, just because it's sort of leaner and quicker. So let's open up OrbStack. Make sure that's running. Okay, so there it is. There. And then what I need to do is I change to the runtime directory. So CD runtime. This will probably be pretty quick because I did this already last week. npm install, npm start. So npm install. It's probably going to check if things are there or not. Yeah, so that's already there because I did it last week. And then npm start will essentially start the local WP environment in Docker. This will also be a lot quicker because I already have those things running and listening and ready to rock and roll. If you don't, they'll download it, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Then you need to switch back to the root. Now, yeah. Then you need to switch back to the root because now we're going to run WP Bench. I want to just open up a new tab here and go to the root and just say which WP Bench. See if this works. Yeah, that doesn't work because I'm not in the virtual environment. Okay, that makes total sense. I could probably install it on my machine though. I wonder how that would work. I'm going to ask DeepWiki. So I have WP Bench set up in a DeepWiki project, I guess it's called. DeepWiki basically scans any GitHub repository, and then it provides you with like documentation, which is built up based on that repo. And then what's cool about it is you can ask questions. So I'm going to say, how would I install WP Bench to my rating system, assuming I am Mac OS? WP Bench as a standalone binary. Let's see if that's even possible. WPbench is installed as a Python package. Okay, so it's got to be installed now. Okay, that's fine. I just wondered if it was possible. All good. Well, maybe it is possible. I just don't know enough about Python to know how to like build something. Okay, so where were we? Okay, so you've done all of that. Then you need to create a config file. So there's an example config file. You can use two different types of datasets, either a local dataset or a dataset from Hugging Face. Hugging Face is like this online repository of like AI things, AI community building in the future. So there are models, datasets, spaces, community docs, da 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 da. So if we go to datasets, I wonder if we search for WP Core. Okay, so there currently are no datasets. So let's go WordPress. So some folks have made WordPress datasets. What I don't know is whether this dataset would work for what we're doing. Maybe we'll try that later. Maybe we'll try that later and see. Let's go look for WordPress blocks. What's this? That might work. Let's try that later. Okay, I'm going to keep this one. Matt Pierce. Why do I know that name? So this is Matt Pierce, who I know from somewhere. Okay. So basically, I don't. Okay, this is all brand new to me, so I don't know half of what I'm doing here. But the way I understand these datasets, if we have a look at what's in the README. Okay, so to add a new suite, you need to create a new suite, add a category file, hooks, REST API, blah, blah, blah. Execution test, so unique ID, task description, list of requirements the solution must meet, regex patterns to check in generated code, assertions to run an example correct solution. So if we have a look at the data sets, for example, so the execution and knowledge. Let's have a look at execution first. Let's take something simple like hooks. So code generation, actions and filters. So let's just enable. Can never remember where this is. Activated subgraph. There we go. So your tests, hooks, intermediate, create code that adds a custom column called featured to the post admin list table. The column should display yes if the post has a meta key is featured with a value of 1, otherwise no. Expected behavior, admin post list shows a featured column with yes no values based on post meta. Requirements, add column header using manage post column filter. Populate column content using manage post column. Check post meta is featured for value 1. And there's required patterns. Okay, add filter, manage post columns. Interesting. So I wonder how it knows what to do with these things. I guess there's some way you can figure that out. It would be cool to understand how to create these. So one of the things that I discovered was that there's this thing called Lights LLM, which is model names that this thing was follow. So it's almost like that's got something to do with it. So I'm going to check it out quickly. What is Light LLM? Light LLM is a Python SDK proxy server to call 100 plus LLM APIs. Oh, okay. So that's not what I need. I need to understand, I would like to understand how to create these suites. Let's see if DeepWiki can help me there. How do I create new data sets? What tools can I use? I don't know if the AI cares whether I use a question mark or not. There's a wiki here that might contain some information. Oh, no. Is that pointing me to now? I wonder if good old Google can help me here. Doesn't look like there are any tools. You kind of have to understand how the AI works. Interesting. Okay. I'm going to do some research on that. That'd be cool to understand. I mean, this looks pretty straightforward. So I wonder if you can use like if you write unit tests and then use those unit tests and convert them into this JSON. What I don't know is what all this means. So I'm going to need to dive into that, which I will do after this live stream so that I can understand it better. Anyway, so let's run what we have. So what I'm going to do is I've got GPT, Gemini. Let's take Gemini out. And I got Claude Sonnet and Claude Opus. Oh, that's the example. I don't want the example. I want these in my bench. Just probably got them there. No, not Gemini. Open this one. And then while that's there, I'm just going to check something. So I'm just logging into my workstation to check if I've got the env file set up correctly. Yes. Yes, I do. Okay, excellent. So now I can check benchmark. Okay, so I'm just doing that. Okay, so let's set up the same environment. So we're going to run those 4 models. Cut that. I'm pretty sure I've got Docker running on my workstation already, so this should just work. I think I've got everything up and running on that side already. So let's just check that it does work. So the command is that one. Let's see if this runs. Yeah. Oh wait, I need to be in the environment as well. Okay, so let's just run through those steps on there again as well. Okay. Did I just do that? Yes, I just did that. No, that's the wrong window. API keys are configured. Okay, so cd runtime install. cd. Let me move this over. So it's a little bit easier to see what I'm doing. Install npm start npm start. Should just work. Okay, so that's working. So let's see if the benchmark runs. Okay. Okay, I didn't save this. That was me fiddling around with local models earlier. Okay. Let's try that again. Okay. Right, that looks good. Okay. So I'm going to interrupt the benchmark. And then I want to go head to head. So on the left, we have, okay. You're going to see some of on the right because my head's in the way. But that's fine. So let me move the, let's do that. Let's move this up out the way. Right. So on the left screen, now what's up? On the left screen, we have my local MacBook. On the right screen, we have my workstation. We're going to run the same command on both sides. Sorry, my phone's popping. I'm just going to turn it off. So make sure it's the same. WP bench, yeah, so that's all the same. I didn't change anything there. Now, I'm not going to be able to hit them at exactly the same time because they're in two different windows, but I'm going to try and do it as quickly one after the other as I possibly can. So we'll let the MacBook start. There we go. Okay, let's see which one finishes first, just for fun. Okay, well, the workstation's already running. Workstation. I wonder why this one took longer to get. This one says 3 seconds 316 and this one says 3 seconds 509. So the workstation took longer to get going. The workstation definitely seems to be that's 31 seconds. Workstation definitely seems to be faster. Not by much though. Hey, Barrow. I mean, the MacBook is only like maybe a few seconds behind. That's interesting. MacBook's about 10 seconds behind the workstation, I would say. Even though they were roughly the same amount, even though the workstation took longer to get the local WordPress site up and running. According to that. Wonder if... What if it's because I had run it earlier today, so... Don't know. Maybe because I just done this, it didn't need to read the configuration again? Don't know. I mean, now they're almost neck and neck. So like the MacBook's almost caught up. What's WP Bench? WP Bench is a WordPress benchmarking tool for AI models. So essentially, you can evaluate how well language models understand WordPress development, from core APIs and coding standards to plugin architecture and security best practices. So the idea is, my understanding of it at least, is that you can use this to check how well models understand WordPress development and then choose your model accordingly as you work day to day. So for example, if we have a look here, this is on my Ubuntu workstation. This is on my local MacBook Pro. It looks like the machine makes a difference because I'm using the same models and the same configuration. But on the MacBook, it looks like some of the values are slightly different. Some of them are exactly the same, which is interesting. But the overall scores, as you can see, are slightly different. But what this does tell you is overall, Claude Sonnet at the moment is better for WordPress development, and I think this one also concurs with that. Currently, Claude Sonnet is better for WordPress development than any other model out of the 4 that I benched. So that's interesting. It would be better to be able to benchmark all three, benchmark Claude Gemini as well. I don't have Gemini installed today, so it'd be interesting to see how that works. What I also want to do is I want to benchmark some local models. So according to the README, which is here, Vera says this could make it easy to evaluate if local models are good for day-to-day work. Exactly. I mean, the idea is you could probably run this maybe once a week or every time the model gets updated or whatever. And you could determine for yourself which one is better for WordPress work. So yeah, that's essentially what this is all about. Vera, if you want to, just to mention, if you want to see like a short version of me, what I'm doing today, I did a video 2 weeks ago. No, not 2 weeks ago. Last week. I'll paste the link in the chat. And towards the end of that video, I did a very quick overview of WP Bench. So if you want to check that out, you'll get the links from there. But it is just in the WordPress WP Bench GitHub organization, GitHub repository. But yeah, that's what I'm busy diving into today. So last week I did like a very quick overview, like 10-20 minutes. Today I'm kind of really diving into how it works, what I can do with it, testing local models, testing other models, trying to understand how to create data sets and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So in the multi-model benchmarking, it says the harness runs each model sequentially and outputs a comparison table. Model names follow light LLM conventions. So light LLM is this Python package or Python SDK that allows you to call LLM APIs to be able to run these data sets, I guess. And so you have all of the known things. So you got OpenAI, Azure, Google, blah, 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 Anthropic, all of that. But then you can also run and test local models. Now, a lot of people like the idea of using local models because then you're not making an API request, it doesn't cost money, blah, blah, blah. So one of the early sort of local model providers that I came across was something called Olama. It's, according to them, it's the easiest way to automate your work using open models while keeping your data safe. You basically install it on your local machine. If you're on a Mac, there is a Mac download. If you're on Linux, there's a shell command to run. If you're on Windows, there's a download. On Mac, it opens up this little thing in your taskbar, and you can open that up, and you can basically, let me pull that on screen. You can use it like any other chat window. So you can install different models, and then you can use the models that you want. So what I like to do is, for example, I like to look at all the coder models because I'm writing code. So Qwen Coder is one, DeepSeek Coder is one. And essentially all you have to do is run this command. It'll download the model and then run it. So once you have Llama installed, let's minimize that for now. Let's clear this. You can just do this. Llama run and the name of your model, and then it'll download it. And if you already have it installed, which I do, then it'll actually open up like a chat window in your, well, chat window, a chat in your terminal, and you can then interact with the model that way. So there I am. So now I can say, what are you? And it'll do AI things. It'll take my request, it'll tokenize it, it'll send it to the AI, it'll generate a response. And this is all happening locally. It's not making any kind of API requests. If I was offline, I could use this. I've used a tool called Continue to interact local models in my PHP storm. So essentially, you can use any models really. I do have a live stream how I configured that a while back. So there you go. I am Qwen, a large-scale language model, integrated da 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 da. Your usual, you know, local model nonsense. So currently, I have it's a Llama list. I have Qwen Coder. DeepSeek Coder installed. You will see that I also have QuenCoder 30B. So basically what I understand is if you install the latest one, the latest one will be whatever the latest one is. So in this case, it's 30B. So I have latest and 30B, so that's fine. So I'm going to test, I'm going to add these to the test. Now I also have this installed on my workstation. So let me just confirm that over here. So let's go llama list. So there we go. So I've got DeepSeek Coder there and QuenCoder 3 latest. So that's how I have them basically set up. So the way to add these to your benchmark is like this. So you say name, and then you specify the provider, in this case Llama, so whatever the local software is that you're doing that provides this, and then the name of the model. So in this case it's going to be, I'll go with QuenCoder latest, so it's the same on both sides. QuenCoder latest, and what was that? DeepSeek Coder 1.3b. Okay, so now that's going to do ChatGPT, ChatGPT 4.0, Claude Sonnet, and all the local ones. So let's grab this, and we will add those to my workstation situation. There we go. So it's latest at 1.3b. Latest 1.3b. Okay, cool. So now let's compare those and see which one is faster. So this time I'm going to let that one go. So there and there. That's like one. This is definitely quicker at reading the configuration and starting WordPress. But this seems to do it quicker. It's almost like the response time is slower or something. But now it's kind of neck and neck, but the workstation is still just a touch faster. My second coffee for the day. Try and limit myself to no more than 3 coffees. Okay, so the workstation is definitely faster. I do know that the M4, I've got an M1 chip in my MacBook. I think the M4 chip will be quicker than my workstation. So I would expect that to be even quicker. But I have generally found my workstation to be faster than my M1 MacBook for most tasks. I was thinking about it. The only downside about this is if you run it, say, once a week, you almost have to run it in an automated way that it just kind of happens in the background. Because if you have to sit here and wait, like let's say you get to work on Monday morning, you're like, all right, let's see which is the best model today. And you've got, you know, your top 5 models or whatever, local or hosted or whatever the case is. If you then have to run this every week, it's going to take a few minutes. So you kind of need to be doing something else to decide which model you're going to use that week. Sorry, folks. Tired. It takes a good, I would say 3 to 5 minutes just with the 4 models we've set up. Now, what's interesting is that's obviously using the internet. I would assume the local models will be a lot faster because it doesn't have to make like an API request to the internet. It can just make a request to a local model. So I'm interested to see what happens? What I would love to do is stick this on a server somewhere. Then it runs every day. It just generates the benchmarks for me every day. So every day I can log in, I can check which is the best model to run today. But I guess that's what some of the benchmarks are that people use. I mean, if you search AI benchmarks, these places, LiveBench, for example, has, you know, things like a leaderboard. So they probably run things like this all the time. Now, it would be cool to do this for WordPress. I think I might even build that. I might even just go ahead and build that, because that could be fun. Okay, now my workstation is kicking up. The fans is spinning like crazy. Oh, look at that. The workstation is way quicker with the local models. Interesting. Now, I wonder if that's because it's able to use the GPU as well. Don't know if you can hear my fan over the live stream, but my workstation fans are spinning like crazy right now. What would be cool? I'm just thinking about this now. What would be cool is if I built a block that I publish on my WordPress site, right? And all it does is it accepts, because this thing's going to generate JSON output in a second. All it does is it accepts JSON output. And the functionality of the plugin that I build for my site allows me to upload that JSON once a week, for example. And then you go to a page on my site and it just shows WordPress AI benchmarks. That could be a cool thing to build. Yeah, I could use Telex to start it off, definitely. I mean, I would use AI to build it, for sure. I've been using GitHub Copilot a lot lately. Just because I like having a little bit more control over what it's building versus Telex. Telex is way too automated for my personal preferences. But I do use GitHub Copilot a lot, and I use it in the GitHub UI, because then I can create issues in a repository and then tell the agent to build something and then go off and do it. But that could be a cool little plugin that I just load on my site, and then once a week I just run all the benchmarks. Claude, did you skip permissions? I could run all the benchmarks. Is my camera still working? Looks like my camera's frozen. Just switching up cameras here. That's weird. When I was looking at my screen, it looked like my camera froze. So it occasionally works. Okay, don't know what happened there. Maybe it's because I'm running all these benchmarks. My camera's just freaking out. Didn't think about that. Now my fans on my laptop are spinning up. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I heard about that. Somebody mentioned that to me a while back. And I see my camera is like freaking out and it's jumping left and right for some reason. Probably because I'm overheating my machine. My camera is not having a good time right now. I'm going to turn my camera off while this all runs. I'll put it back on once all these things are finished. I actually feel like it's getting hot. Maybe it's just my mental state. And I feel like my office space is getting warmer with all this benchmarking going on. It would appear that the benchmarking is frozen. Either that or it's got stuck. I'm going to interrupt things. There we go. Okay, so it looks like the deep sea coder situation is not great. Wonder if it's because I think that's a bigger model. Put my camera back on. Yeah, my camera's not jumping around anymore, so that's a good thing. Deep sea coder. That's the smaller of the two. That's interesting. That one seemed to just bum out completely. Okay, so what we're going to do now to make my life easier is I'm going to close this and we'll just run this on the workstation. And hopefully we can run these against each other on the workstation without the whole thing freaking out. I'm going to quit out of there. Completely quit Alarma. Going to completely quit OrbStack. Try and free up some resources. Because I can hear my MacBook fan still running. So I want that to calm down first. Okay. MacBook fans are still running. It's almost like there's something running in the background. Right, that's the workstation. I'm going to just exit out of here. Okay, my MacBook is quietened down now. So that's interesting. I didn't think of that. I guess it makes complete sense. So I think the best is going to be if I run this on the workstation and then the best. So let's do this. Let's just run it against Quen for now, and we'll see what that gives us. Compare it to the other 4. And then we'll come back for DeepSeek in a second. Oh, you know what we could do? We could just run a single model for now. So the one that was the best was Claude Sonnet, if I remember. So let's use Claude Sonnet as a single model. We'll just run that. Now what are we doing? Okay, let's comment all of this out. Okay, so I just want to run Claude Sonnet just to get the baseline values again. Okay, so let's run that. Oh, I need to do the whole thing again, don't I? Thanks for letting me know about the audio and video issue, Pero. I'll have a look into that after today's stream. See runtime input store. Time. Store. Start should be running. Cool. Okay, so let's run that. So now it should just do go on benchmark. And that'll at least give us a baseline that we can work with. I'll be honest, I didn't think I would waste an hour on this. Looks like I am. What I'm thinking of doing is I'm going to run this one just as a baseline and then run the 2 local ones independently and just get a feel for what their results are. Okay, so there's our overall. Now, I'm not sure why it's not showing it here in this like cool thing like it did on the Mac. But it'll give us an idea of what's what. So if you have a look at the JSON, I'm pretty sure this is the case of multiplying this value by 100. So knowledge is 80.9, correctness is 47.9, overall is 43.4, which kind of lines up with what we saw earlier. So now let us run Quencoder. Okay. Let's just run the bench again. Always takes about 3.5 seconds to get the local site set up. It's pretty quick. Once it's all running, once everything's downloaded, it runs pretty quickly. It's interesting that the execution seems to take so long with the local models. I wonder why that is. I'm guessing it has to execute it locally. Whereas with the private ones, it executes on their servers and then returns the response. That makes sense. I wonder what kind of server, like what kind of VPS you would need. Probably need something super powerful to run this. That's the other problem. I need to be running it on my workstation to get any kind of decent value. What would be cool is if I could run multiple individual benches. Like somehow. I don't know. Anyway, okay. So that's the next one. Let's have a look. See what Quen Coder gives us. So that's 73, 33 overall through 35. I mean, that's not too bad compared to like a paid model. That's not bad at all. If you consider you're getting it for free. That's not bad. Okay, let's do the next one. Let's go DeepSeek, so we just need this part. DeepSeek Coder. That's it, this one finishes. Last time we did. Okay, so now let's run that. Now this is the one that froze last time. Let's see if it finishes when it's our turn. Yeah, that's already better. Is it? Is it going to get stuck? I wonder why it's getting stuck. Interesting. It's like it gets stuck at 25% and then it doesn't go any further. Now I wonder if that's because of a hardware limitation or something else. Hey Troy, I'm busy trying to use WP Bench to benchmark the DeepSeek Coder local model. And it's getting stuck at 25% and I don't know why. And so I don't know whether I should just leave it or let it run. But it's just stuck there. That's interesting. I mean, I wonder if it's got something to do with the size of the local model, because which one are we running now? We're running DeepSeek. But it's only DeepSeek's only 700 and was it? It's definitely DeepSeek we were running last. Yeah, we were doing DeepSeek last. DeepSeek is only 776 megs, so it can't even be that. But it just gets stuck at 25%. That's interesting. I wonder if DeepWiki is going to be any use here if I ask this question. Why would a local benchmark percentage? I'll put this to deep research. See if it can give me any answers. It's probably not going to be able to give me answers because I don't think this is part of the code anyway. So the other thing I want to do is I want to try and do this Hugging Face dataset and see what that does. So if I don't get any answers from DeepWiki, then we'll go about testing that. So let's start configuring that so long. So I'm going to do that locally and then I'll copy it over to where I'm at. I'm guessing that's the dataset name. Yeah, and then Hugging Face is source. Take out a llama. Actually, let's leave Quenin because that seems to be okay. And let's take out the mini. And let's take out Opus because in our test Sonnet was better. Let's take out this and that. We'll just do those three. Okay. Okay, let's run that. Oh wait, I need to change the dataset values as well. There we go. Okay, theoretically that should work. Let's see what that does. Didn't like that. Okay, so it looks like the format is probably wrong. So it's probably the format of the JSON probably needs to be set in a certain way, blah, blah, blah. But at least now I know how that works. So I come away with a few questions. Question number one is, let me open up my stream notes here because I'm going to do some research. Question number one is, what would cause a local model to get stuck? Let's see if DeepWiki was any good. Okay. And then the other question I have is, how do I create a new data set? So I'm looking at the data sets. And if we looked at hooks, for example, it makes sense to me what it's doing, but how do I verify what it should be doing? Do I have to write tests, or how does that work? If we look at knowledge, for example, it asks questions. Okay, that's pretty solid. So, which fires multiple choice answer question. That seems pretty straightforward. But what would be cool if there was a way that I could create these things with like some kind of tool? So I want to kind of dive into that next. At least understand how that works. So those are my follow-up questions that I'm going to reach out to people about. I'm going to reach out to Jason and James and ask them these questions. But yeah, that is WP Bench. If you want to read about it, you can do on the Make WordPress AI blog. There is a post that James wrote recently. I couldn't find it. That one. It's not that one. Lots have happened. Lots and lots of things have happened. There. So that talks about what it is and how people are looking for contributions. So if you want to see that, there is the link. I'll pop it in the chat. And if you want to get hold of the actual repository, there it is. I'm going to noodle on that idea that I had for the block. It's something I might do. I don't know. I think it could be cool to do because it would be cool to have like a public version of LiveBench, but for WordPress. So based on all the models that are available, which ones are the best for WordPress development? I'll try and include as many of these as I can. And then, actually, let me make a note of this. And then as many of the local models as I can. I think that would be very cool. So that's definitely an idea that I have. WordPress development model benchmark block. I might just go and dive into that from the next week's stream. I'm not sure, but that could be cool. That could be fun. Yeah, that's just an idea that I have. We'll see. We'll see if anything comes out of that. But I think that's what I'm going to call it for today, folks. I've kind of explored everything I feel comfortable exploring today. Got some follow-up questions that I'm going to put out there. But if you want to check this out, I've shared the links in the chat, so give that a look. If you want to use this deep wiki thing, I found this pretty helpful when I was starting to learn WP Bench. So I'll share that link with you as well. There we go. And there's Alama if you want to install some local models. I'll pop that in the chat. And I'll share these. I'll share these on the YouTube video when it goes up next week. So you can check that out as well. All right, I'm going to call it a day. I generally have all these ideas of streaming for like up to 2 hours, but I get to an hour and then I start getting tired of streaming. So I'm kind of sticking to an hour lately. But also I've run out of things that I want to do in the stream, so I want to move on to something else. So that's it for me, folks. Have a great rest of your week. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you next week. Bye.